It's time to talk a little Ole Miss Rebel football. Brad Logan covers Ole Miss for Inside the Rebels on 24/7 Sports. Let's bring him up. Brad, how you doing?
Doing well, George. How are you, sir?
Good, good. Is the car going well? You getting good gas mileage?
We're doing quite well, and I'll tell you, George, it's a really nice day to be out and about today, and appreciate the opportunity to come on your show. I've really enjoyed following you over the years, and so it's an honor to be honest with you.
Well, it works both ways on this. Brad, how good is Ole Miss? And I ask that because it's hard to gauge it right now.
It really is, and George, to be honest with you, I don't know how good they are. I think we'll learn more on Saturday morning at 11 o'clock when they face a really good Kentucky team. We've seen them beat teams like Central Arkansas. Obviously, we've seen Troy, not a very good Georgia Tech team. I don't know how good Tulsa is. If you'll think about it, Davis Brand, one of the top passers in the country, goes down with an injury, and Ole Miss really struggles with the backup quarterback coming in for Tulsa. So the defense I thought was pretty good, George, and they've got a senior-laden backfield, defensive backfield led by A.J. Finley, who leads this team in tackles. But everybody's kind of looking at that offense with quarterback Jackson Dart, the transfer out of USC. And last year, with the loss of Matt Corral at quarterback, one of their top rushers, and they're probably 95% of their rushing attack either went pro or transferred. You've got a brand new running back room, a brand new quarterback room. Regardless of how talented they are, they're all new and they've got to gel together. And we saw this team do pretty well with the first couple of games, kind of trailed off last week against Tulsa. I think a lot of that is just, they're ready to play someone, and they'll obviously play someone Saturday when they get a chance to play Kentucky. We just really don't know, but I think we'll know a whole lot more after Saturday.
Tell me this: when John Rice Plumlee left to go to Central Florida, was it before Jackson Dart entered the picture or after?
It was before, and I think a lot of that was he wanted the opportunity to play quarterback, the entire time, and he had a chance to play a couple of years ago, as you'll remember, had over 200 rushing yards against a pretty good LSU defense. He just didn't have a very good vertical passing game, and so I think it was a pretty open conversation between Lane Kiffin and John Rice Plumlee that he probably wasn't going to be the quarterback going forward. They were going to do their best to try to hit that transfer portal and find a quarterback for this team. Obviously, Matt Corral had gone off to the NFL. He lands at Central Florida under Gus Malzahn, and from everything that I've seen, he's doing a pretty good job. So I think he probably understood that the future was not going to be with him being the quarterback at Ole Miss.
Is it me, or is Ole Miss running the football more? And is that really what Lane Kiffin wants to do with this team?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, George, they led the SEC in rushing last year, and they're leading obviously right now with the duo of Zach Evans, the transfer out of TCU, and of course Quinshon Judkins, the talented freshman out of the state of Alabama. Where I'm not sure how he got away from the clutches of Auburn or Alabama, but I know Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin has been very, very bullish on his new running back Quinshon Judkins, who's got an SEC Freshman of the Week, I think a couple of times this year. So they're running the ball a lot. I think a lot of it, George, is because of the familiarity of running the football behind a pretty good offensive line. And I think because, too, Jackson Dart has just not had a lot of time in this offense. The receivers have not stepped up. Jalen Robinson and Trey Knox, two transfer receivers, one from Missouri, and, of course, Jalen Robinson out of Central Florida. They just haven't played very well. It's been a situation where you've got a Jonathan Mingo that has stepped up, has been a leader on this offensive team. And Michael Trigg has been a pretty good asset for this team, but he's just not blocking very well, so that's limited his time on the field. Suffice to say, they just haven't had very much production at wide receiver, so they're kind of forced to run the football. And I think more than anything, this is an Ole Miss offense that Lane Kiffin always likes to run the football. You just think Lane Kiffin wide open, throw the clipboard. Actually, what you got is Lane Kiffin in his offense. He really likes to run the football, and that's kind of what they've been doing so far.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. If we had you on last Thursday, let's say, and I had said, okay, Brad, what do you think the Ole Miss Kentucky line will be? Would you have said Ole Miss 6.5?
Absolutely not. And I would have said, if anything, it would be less than 3. I would have said a pick 'em, George, and if they were playing in the Peach Bowl Classic to open the season, I would have said it would have been a draw and a bit of pick 'em. So I would have said Ole Miss -2, maybe 2.5 because of home field. I don't know where Vegas is coming from on this line, George. And, I've tried to look at this thing a couple different ways because I think about Will Levis, the quarterback for Kentucky. You've got Rodriguez coming back, is an incredible running back. I just don't know if this Ole Miss defense can stifle this Kentucky offense. And here's the thing, too. I think the Tulsa defense kind of gave a little bit of a roadmap of how to silence this Ole Miss rushing attack. They did a great job in the second half, George. No points given up by Tulsa in the second half. Ole Miss scores 28 in the second quarter. I think that could be a little bit of Tulsa's a little better defensively than we thought, or it could be a little bit of Ole Miss is having a difficult time developing that passing game. And I think Kentucky, Mark Stoops, he's been around the block a time or two, so they'll have something for Ole Miss defensively. I don't know how they're drawing the 6.5. For Kentucky,
okay.
for Ole Miss
so
right
you're
now.
like me. You're trying to say to yourself, what do they know that we don't know? Here's one I've come up with. You'll get more intelligent questions in a minute from Watson Brown, but is there this belief that, okay, he's been very close to the vest for 4 weeks against opponents that's the way he could play it? Is he likely to open a bag of tricks on Kentucky that maybe they have no clue is coming?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt, George, that they will be some different things, specific packages offensively that Lane Kiffin will roll out. I mean, to say that he was vanilla against Georgia Tech, I mean, he even admitted at the end of the press conference that he understood that Jeff Collins was kind of had his back against the wall and he didn't want to run it up in a very nice way. The same thing could be said. He admitted that he pulled the rushing game back against Troy and Central Arkansas. Didn't really say much about Tulsa in the postgame other than the fact is he was very disappointed. The offensive line didn't block as well as they should have. Suffice to say, is there a secret weapon that we don't know about? Is there some offensive packages? Is this a game to where maybe Trey Knox, Jalen Robinson, who's kind of been on the shelf, do we see him kind of come out? He's been dealing with a hamstring injury. Is this a day to where he lets, for example, Zach Evans, who's been dealing with a little bit of a lower body injury, can he go full string? Do we see Quinshon Judkins? Do they pull the reins off Jackson Dart? I think there's a lot of questions going into this 11 o'clock game. I don't think there's any doubt that Ole Miss looked back during the past summer and thought, okay, here's my schedule. Obviously he's not saying anything like this to the media, but we need to be this record until we get to Kentucky. That's when we can kind of open the playbook. I think there's some truth to that.
Okay, if you want to open the playbook, say hello to this guy. Watson, say hello to Brad Logan.
Brad, thanks for coming on with us.
Hey, Coach. And George, if I didn't get one chance to say this one thing, I want to say, Coach Brown, I know your family has been entrenched in college athletics, specifically football, for a number of years. I just want to thank you for everything you gave to college football, and it's an honor to speak to you today.
Well, that's very nice of you, Brad. That tells me I'm getting really old when you say something. That's kind of the way it works, but that's neat that you say that. And are you sitting in a parking lot? Where are you?
I am. I'm in a parking lot. I've had a couple of radio shows today, and I try to do my best on Zoom. So let's just say we had a few technical difficulties with the computer. So we do the best we can.
That's pretty neat. Your new office is a car.
What if a policeman stops him, Watson? Excuse me, sir, I'm on Zoom.
I'm waiting for someone to walk up and tap on the window, and I'm going to politely say, give me about 5 minutes.
Oh, that's pretty good. Brad, to me, I think it's time that he has to go for it now. It can't be Willie or Willie not. He's got to. I don't think Lane can beat Kentucky without throwing the football much better than he has. And so it's time. Yeah. And the second thing that I've noticed, Brad, is he's not been in that pace like I've seen him before. The pace is still there, but it's not that just absolute fast pace that he did with Corral. And I think that's a big piece of his offense, just like Tennessee. I'll bet you we're going to see him throw the football a lot more and better, and I think you're going to see the pace appear again against Kentucky Saturday.
And, Coach, I'd like to address the question number 2 first by saying there are only 2 answers to that question. Number 1, he's not comfortable with Jackson Dart doing that right now. Or 2, he's doing exactly like George intimated before. He's holding on for a reason to open it up, which would obviously be against Kentucky on Saturday. The first part of that question, I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens. I think, Coach, I'm really interested to see defensively how they match up against Will Levis. And, we're talking about opening up the playbook and Lane Kiffin doing this, that, and the other. I think more than anything, I'm interested to see what Mark Stoops defensively is going to do to game plan for Ole Miss. I think he's going to put a lot of pressure on Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart threw he threw a number of interceptions his freshman season at USC. Not a lot of people are talking about that. We saw Jackson Dart make that decision in the second quarter against Georgia Tech a couple of weeks ago. Lane Kiffin was very upset about that.
Yeah.
On the halftime interview on the Ole Miss Radio Network, he pointed out, we had a one-sided conversation. It was me doing all the talking. So he was very, I guess you could say, demonstrative about the fact that he needs Jackson Dart to understand he's not looking for a Matt Corral to win this game. He's looking for someone to navigate this game. For example, a Jay Barker type quarterback from the 90s in Alabama. Jay didn't win a lot of games, but Jay manufactured the games and allowed other people to win the games for him. I think that's what Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin are going to try to do on Saturday. And one quick thing, Coach, they're going to have to do something against Kentucky because after this, it's wide open. It's Vanderbilt, it's Auburn, then you get into Arkansas, LSU, Mississippi State, Alabama. It does not let up after this.
No, and this is the big one to me, though, Brad. And I promise you, Kentucky is going to crowd him. I promise you, Kentucky is going to say, throw it. I want to see you throw it and throw it well. And they're going to crowd him and think that they can cover him. And that's why I think he's going to have to open it up, because I don't think he can do to Kentucky what he's done in these first 4 games and run the ball that well.
No.
And I think if I'm Lane, watching his defense in these early games, it hadn't been fantastic. And I think he knows, Brad, he's got to score a lot of points to win this game. So I just think we're going to see the old style from last year show up out of necessity, whether it works or not. I'll be anxious to see, but that's what I'm going to bet on.
Yeah, I think he's going to try it, Coach. I do. I think he understands, along with Charlie Weiss Jr. I mean, anybody that's watching, I've watched every game and been to a number of practices. It's been incredibly vanilla offensively so far. And a lot of that is because, number one, you don't want to give anything away. But number two, you've been up so much, you really haven't had a chance to do anything sporadic or, to draw eyes, I guess you could say, from the cameras. I think more than anything is Lane Kiffin and this staff understand that Ole Miss can have a good season, but in order to have a great season, they're going to have to beat Kentucky. Not to mention there'll be a number of recruits there on campus. It's the lead-in game out of College Game Day on ESPN, that 11 o'clock window. George and Coach, I know you guys understand that's a big moneymaker. So this is a really big game from a number of perspectives, from a university perspective. I think more than anything, Ole Miss is going to have to play better at the end of the day than they have the last couple of weeks if they're going to win on Saturday.
George?
Cannot wait to see this one. This is going to be a terrific football game. Brad, save me a seat down there.
Sure will, George. It's great to see you.
Hey,
Thanks,
thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Look forward to it anytime, guys.